escape room puzzler Wanderer came to PC VR and PSVR headsets last week. Here's our review of the game straight from the VR Gamescast, which comes to you every Thursday. But let's move on to reviews. I'm going to start with Wanderer, which is a escape room game, sort of adventure puzzler type deal. Actually, ironically enough, it hides the fact it's an escape room pretty well, I think. Developed by Oddboy and M-Theory. We've been waiting for this one for quite a while. It's like it first announced like a year ago, and visually the game is very impressive. So I think a lot of us were like, oh, where did this come from? And then there's a lot of trailers showing puzzle solutions that are never, it's not like the game has like a fixed thing, like a portal game or something like that. It's not like you're always jumping through portals. It's very much an escape room. It's very much picking up an item, figuring out how to use it in an intuitive VR way, which I always think is a really great showcase of the kind of gameplay variety you can get out of VR. Like just like using different tools, like a screwdriver or then a saw, and just actually having to do those physical actions, I think is a good fast track way to show you how VR gaming can be different and not set around like repetitive mechanics. So the story here is that you kind of start in this like really messed up version of the future. It's in Boston. There's like, if you played The Last of Us 2, like the Seattle area was really flooded. It's kind of like that, like a very leafy, lovely area, but you have to get around by boats and you get attacked by crocodiles and it's all terrible. You stumble upon your grandfather's apartment who was doing weird sciencey stuff. You find a mysterious talking watch called Samuel. This game sounds so awesome based on what I'm...
And it's crocodiles, it's a talking watch.
Yeah.
It's got it all.
Yeah, it's and he's like a southern prospector as well. Oh, we'll get into it. And basically you try and set about going back in time using different artifacts to kind of like fix problems that have occurred because I think I'm getting the story right, because of like an evil future corporation timey thing is messing things up and you want to try and go back and fix them. And so basically, yeah, like I said, it's kind of a disguised escape room experience in that you've got 4 or 5 time zones. Each one presents a set of puzzles, but you can take items from one time zone, take them over to another, take items from the present into the different scenarios as well. So you're kind of like pushing up progress through each of the time zones every time you find a new item or something. So it's a very ambitious game, and on a technical and graphical front, it is pretty stunning to behold. It's been a while since I've seen a VR game that looks this good. I would say it's kind of almost up there with like, almost in terms of environmental detail, it's definitely almost up there with Alex, which is a really surprising thing to say.
That's what I thought when I saw the trailers and last time I wrote about it.
Right down to the fact you have these finger gloves that literally just look like Alex's hands, which is, I think is kind of a callback as well. There's actually a lot of crowbar using as well, but not in the melee sense, in the sense that you actually use a crowbar. And so there's the graphical aspect of it, which is really incredible. Very super crisp textures, super detailed environments, which I just couldn't believe, again, coming from 2 studios we haven't really heard about before, and it being a decidedly indie effort, I just couldn't believe how impressive some of this stuff was. Then you have the time traveling aspect, which is, I played on PC, and it's just enormously impressive because you take an artifact belonging to that era, you put it in Samuel the Watch, and then it like there's like a white fade for 5 seconds with a big sci-fi, who's the Hans Zimmer,
Yes.
and then
the drone, the Inception drone. Yeah.
And then you're just suddenly in the environment, and it kind of works how Sony was always touting the power of its SSD and how fast you'd go between environments. It kind of feels like, even though I'm playing on PC and that tech's not there, it's like a realization of that.
Yeah.
And I look forward to hopefully a PSVR 2 version where maybe they even get that down even faster. So if you've watched the show, if you read the website, I'm not the biggest fan of puzzle games, especially in VR, because I find if you get stuck, you get really, like, more than on a flat screen, you get really frustrated really quickly. Yeah.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
And then you're like, I don't want to be here anymore. So the great thing about it is that I would actually say that Wanderer gets that balance very well done. There are definitely a couple of times where I was like, oh man, I'm so done with this puzzle. It's a long game. There's genuinely about 11 hours long, which is very impressive. And towards the end of it, definitely, there's a couple of puzzles I was like, haven't I solved enough? Is my brain not big enough yet? I'm
Help me,
sorry that I don't know
Samuel.
what to do with this flagpole. But there's some really cool, inventive solutions in there that see you do a wide range of things. So there is kind of some action stuff where, like, in certain puzzles, if you don't kill an enemy in time, you'll get killed. So you do have a gun to, like, sort those situations out, but sometimes you need to hallucinate, and there's like a frog you can find in the environment somewhere that you lick
Yes.
to hallucinate, which reveals new passages and things like that. You get that set of tools I was talking about. There's like a controllable RC car that you might use in certain scenarios as well. It's all these really cool, very human level interactions that you can tell these developers started out with this game and said, let's not just make another puzzle game. Let's not just make an action game or an adventure game. Let's work out things that are going to feel fun in VR and unique and new to VR and capitalize on them. And it is genuinely about, like I said, 10 to 11 hours of those kind of really cool, unique solutions and interactions while you're hopping around different eras, taking different items from different eras and using them in like the future and the past or in the present. It's just like an incredible spectacle though to have all of those different elements meshing together so in this game. Like it really does come together really well. There are problems with it though, and I think I'll probably end up giving the game a great rather than an essential, and that's because there are several things that are just like nitpicks, and it's, oh, you'll probably solve this in like the coming weeks. So there's one thing where like Samuel, who is a fantastic invention, has this really cool little like mustache on his watch face and everything like that. You press a button to like, and he'll give you a hint in the current puzzle, but he'll jump out of the air, like watch strap thing and fly around, which is really cool to see. The problem is that
cool.
I would say about 50% of the time, the hint system had actually fallen behind with where I was in the game. So I would say, oh, I'm really stuck on this one about like water pressure or something like that. And he'd come out and be like, yeah, it's really cool being on the moon here, isn't it? Like, yeah, that was half an hour ago, man.
Also, it's not even like the same part of the puzzle you're on. It's literally half an hour ago back. It's not.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah,
right.
It's exactly
so
that.
It's a bug, basically.
Yeah, it's really out of sequence. Like every time I would load the game up as well, he would say, he gives you a little reminder of where you are, but it would always be like a couple of objectives ago. So that's like
just very confused.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you need a hint to get through a puzzle, you're like, oh.
Makes it even more frustrating, I can imagine too.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, Samuel's not helping.
So there's that, which that'll be ironed out, I'm sure. I think two bigger problems with the game are, one thing is it has persistent objects throughout the entire game. So if you leave a drill somewhere, it's left in that time zone, in that era.
Oh, yeah.
Until you remember where it is, which is a good idea on the surface.
I can see where you're going with this.
But when you haven't used the drill in 2 hours and then there's a solution, oh, it's back on the moon, or oh, it's in 1940s Germany or whatever. And you're like, oh, what the heck? So it does have an inventory system, but it's only 5 slots and you have to upgrade them by finding collectibles. So you start out with 1 slot and you get up to 5, and 5 isn't enough. You probably need 10 or whatever. And even though it gives you incentive to go and find the collectibles, I would have liked to have had all of that there from the start, just so I had the convenience factor from the start, rather than having to run back and forth all the time. The other problem is, because it's got all these different types of interactions, which are genuinely impressive, some of them are just not quite there in terms of being refined as they could be right now. Like dials in the game are a big problem. Anytime you have to twist something, I'd be twisting in real life, just watching it either not move or go back in the opposite direction.
Yeah, right.
And there's sometimes you're, say, diffusing a bomb against the clock or something like that. So when you're up against the clock and your hands aren't responding, that gets really annoying. So I do feel like the game probably could have used a couple more months to just iron that out and be this really smooth, solid experience when it came out. But I do think it's a really fantastic experience all the same. And if you're willing to put up with some of those bugs at launch, definitely one of my favorite VR games in recent memory. And that was our review of Wanderer, straight from the VR Gamescast, which goes live every Thursday.